another episode of our as yet unnamed Her Hoop Stats podcast. It has been less than a week since episode number 1, but we are now onto our more typical schedule. We are here recording on Tuesday the 3rd. This will be coming at you on the 4th, or whenever you find us, whenever you're listening. As you may or may not know, we'll give you some time here to remember us, to figure us out. I am Jamie Steyer Johnson at JStyes, wherever you want to find me, and I am joined, as I will always be, with my two loyal co-hosts, Tyler DeLuca and Chelsea Leite. So welcome back. Guys, how we feeling?
Feeling good. It's a bit of a shorter week since we last been here, but listen, we're in the WNBA. There's always something to talk about, and there's plenty to talk about always. So like we got some stuff.
Maybe even too much to talk about.
Well.
And to start off with, let's talk about Chelsea's beautiful new setup, looking extremely professional, giving professional podcaster. So
the headphones and everything.
Yeah,
claps for that. Right,
got the jersey and everything.
Yes.
Shout out to Lisa.
Yeah. Speaking to me directly.
Yeah.
Like, we're bonding
Shout
on
out,
every level.
Shout out my guy Casey for this one.
Yeah.
Love. Obsessed with his designs.
Yep.
Need to cop. Okay.
Yep. Toronto
I could go
over
on
everything.
forever. But we are not. We are going to move on to some of our topics we have at hand here. And the big thing that we have been discussing amongst ourselves here is there have been some late season additions. We know there was a little bit of movement right before the break, right after the break. We talked a little bit about those moves. Marina Mabry, Maisha Haynes-Allen, all that fun stuff. But some people coming into or back into the league for the first time this season, or first time since the very beginning of the season. Of course, most recently, the Aces just announced that they signed Queen Egbo to add a little bit of much-needed post depth. And this comes at a time where they are really starting to look like the Aces that we all know and love. For some people, I suppose, love to hate if you are.
I was gonna say maybe not everyone loves them. If your team keeps losing to them, then I probably wouldn't love them too much. But
yeah, for sure. But you know, whether it's all on a spectrum. You know, the opposite of love is not hate; it is indifference. And so you know, all just two sides of the same coin. So, the Aces, they have been incredible. Asia's been Asia. And the rest of the team has looked a little bit more like themselves as of late. So how are we feeling about what we've been seeing from the Aces these past couple games, and then adding Queen Egbo into the mix? Because I am excited. I've seen Queen for a long time.
We know you like your post players.
My post players, my Big 12 players.
This is really this is your intersection right here.
This is
of
truly
Big 12
big. For me, like, I saw right away that one of their assistant coaches was tweeting about how he had to get in the ice bath.
Oh yeah, Tyler Marsh.
Wrong, and I'm like, yes, she is. You know, she's been staying in the gym. So how are we feeling about this?
Yeah,
I mean, great. I think the benefit to getting these players who haven't necessarily stuck on a team all season is that they have fresh legs and they're just like ready to go. And especially getting on a team like the Aces where the goal is championship or nothing, like that motivates you. And I know, like, I've loved to watch Queen like jump from team to team, and it has always just kind of made a little spark everywhere she's gone, but hasn't been able to find like a fit. And that's just because there's not enough roster spots and too many good players. But I'm excited to see, you know, someone be able to back up the bigs that Las Vegas has. I mean, we all know Asia Wilson is doing, undescribable things. There aren't words in the English language to describe her, but they need some help. And we've seen that over the past few weeks. They've been tired, whether that's the Olympics, whether that's just the season. But getting someone with fresh legs is really great. And I mean, they weren't going to be like, quote unquote, bad for that long. Like, I don't think they were ever bad. I just think that maybe they were tired, maybe they were having a slump, but at the same time, this team is always a contender in its current form. So it's not like anybody ever counted them out.
Yeah, I definitely think that it wasn't necessarily counting out as much as the expectations for this team was a championship, or is a championship. So like whenever you're not at a championship level, it's easy to feel disappointed by it. And I think they would tell you that themselves. Like I don't think the disappointment has been hidden from inside the house of the Aces, in the sense of like where they're performing and everything. But I mean, these past couple of games, the defense to me has looked much better. It's looked much more active, the switching and whatnot. And I'm really actually very intrigued by what Queen brings to this team. Because like Jamie, look, I've been in Big 12 country. It means more now, but this has been Big 12 country for as long as I've known. And so I've gotten to see Queen up close and personal several times at the college level and now the WNBA level. And I do think that she brings a different type of big to this Aces roster in the sense of Megan Gustafson certainly can bang down low, but can stretch the floor. Kia Stokes has struggled throughout this season to me, but another player that can kind of step out. And I'm actually interested in a Queen Egbo, A'ja Wilson lineup where A'ja is your pure 4. Because I think a lot of times you see her kind of split in between those two, in between the 4 and the 5. And certainly she can do it. It's not about a capability thing. To me, it's about an ask. And what are you asking A'ja Wilson to do? And by bringing Queen Egbo in, you might be able to reduce some of the ask in the sense of banging down low, screen setting. Obviously, A'ja is going to be involved in so many different things still, but it's just a different type of big than they had across the rest of this roster. Certainly, there's bits and pieces of quote unquote true 5s across the rest of this roster and the depth that they have down low. But I feel like Queen is in comparison to the other non-A'ja Wilson bigs on this roster, is the most true 5 by far to me. And I'm very interested in seeing what that looks like, especially as we've seen A'ja space the floor more, to step out to the 3 more. And just seeing what that combination looks like, especially as they've kind of been messing with the starting lineups recently and trying to fit those pieces in. Maybe it's more matchup based or anything. And so I'll just be intrigued in that sense to see now that A'ja Wilson's game has grown since, a Liz Cambage was on this team or anything like that, where now she can space this floor way more than she could ever had in past seasons. Seeing her next to a true 5 is something that intrigues me, and I don't know necessarily if it's going to work the way that they want to, or if that's something that's really going to kind of prioritize as much as just bringing Queen in as another backup and potentially a way to get A'ja more rest, because Lord knows she's played every game ever. It feels like, I don't know, I can't tell you the last time that she's
never had
a game. Like,
I don't think someone said like 2019. I think she's played 208 games.
I completely believe it, and in those games she's playing incredibly high amounts of minutes. So even if Queen just comes in and is able to get her a couple, 2 or 3 extra minutes, that's a worthwhile pickup to me. So I'm very intrigued by it. I don't know just how much opportunity, frankly, and like minutes that Queen will be given, but we've seen Becky Hammond experiment, and so that's what I see this as currently. As at minimum, it's a way to grab a couple extra minutes of rest potentially for A'ja. At maximum, it could be a very interesting experiment that they might even lead into going into postseason play.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that the additional context that I have that makes this so interesting to me as well is I think back to last season where Ashley Jones, who obviously came out of Iowa State, was one of the players who spent a significant amount of time in Vegas on short-term contracts. And the fact that she went in there, and I mean, she raved about just the group of players, the people, how welcome they made her feel. I mean, you've seen it from the way that they've treated Kate Martin. This is a group that is so welcoming. They don't seem to have ever met a stranger. And so when you talk about these really late additions in the span of the entire season, it can be kind of difficult to mesh everyone, to get the chemistry going, to figure out, okay, where do they fit as a person, as a player. But I just don't think that that's really an issue with the Aces organization. Whether she's going to get a whole lot of playing time or not, I think that they're going to be super realistic with her of what they are looking for, what their expectations are. And that just sets everyone up for success when you are realistic, when you do have a legitimate understanding of the situation. And so that is the kind of other side of things where you are priming yourself to be in a good spot. The Aces are a team that can make those late additions and I think be really effective.
Yeah, that team kind of just like oozes vibes. Like you just like see them on social media, you see them before games, you see them on the sideline, and you're like, okay. I feel like it would be hard for a player to like not enter that kind of environment and like not immediately feel welcome. I think that's just like the culture that they have. And even through like I said, these like little bit of struggles through this season, that hasn't wavered either. So I think it's, I think it's kind of a testament to the fact that all these teams are investing so much in things like facilities and treatment, and that trickles down like all the way to playing, of course, but also to like team culture and knowing that you're wanted somewhere and like knowing that people are taking care of you no matter if you're there for like 7 days or the rest of the season. And I think that's like such an underrated part of all of this is like, it's obviously standard in the NBA to have a lot of these things, but we're really just seeing WNBA players get things like, top of the notch facilities and certain things over the past few years. And I think that's just really going to like up, especially for these short-term contracts, because these players who are going on short-term contracts have to stay in the gym themselves when they're not on a team. And then, you give them all these resources and they have the opportunity to shine. So I don't know, that's just while we were talking, that just kind of like sparked in my head of like, oh, I feel like that would be a place where if you got put there in a short-term contract, you'd be like, okay, cool, let's go. Let's, use this opportunity as best I can, both on the court to help the team and also for yourself to like, be able to take advantage of that as well. So I think just like, Vegas has been doing a lot, Seattle, New York, we're seeing teams start to like invest in these things, and these players are going to want to go there for short-term contracts, long-term contracts, and stuff like that as well. So I definitely think it helps when these late players come in and they're excited to be there and excited to like contribute to the culture.
Yeah, get Queen a white t-shirt.
Yeah. Next week we're all going to be in white t-shirts.
Absolutely. Bring them all out. Now, you bring up another team, Chelsea, that is in a sort of similar situation in making one of those late additions. This is a player that is familiar with the program, has been around before, but had not been there yet this season. I am, of course, talking about Seattle Storm and Gabby Williams returning there. Some questions there following the Olympics about whether she was going to come back to the league, where she would land. And she said, yeah, there was only one team I was going to end up with, and that was Seattle. Seattle, very different this year than last year. Coming into the season, a lot of discussion about, okay, they kind of have the makings of a super team here with the signings they made in the off season. It took a little bit of time to gel, have looked really, really good at times, but at others, maybe not as great. So with the addition of Gabby Williams, still getting her feet under her somewhat, which again, super understandable. She did not, in fact, really get any rest here over the Olympic break. She is not well rested coming out of her time away from the W. And the Storm just struggling. I mean, there's not really another way to put it. At times, lost 3 of their last 4, given 2 of those were to the Sun and the Liberty. However, one of them did come a 2-point loss to the Mystics. Right before that, they had beat the Mystics by only 6 points. Lost to the Fever pretty bad before that, the Dream before that. So it's been a rough stretch coming out of the Olympic break for the Storm. So what are you guys seeing from Gabby Williams? How does the Storm right the ship here?
I think like where other teams benefited from the chemistry building of like having a lot of people back from the Olympics, I think Seattle didn't have, like Seattle had a lot of people go to the Olympics, and for a team they were still building chemistry throughout the beginning of the year, and then I feel like that was just disrupted by the Olympics, and it kind of didn't benefit them as much, because then you come back, you're adding a huge piece. Like Gabby Williams isn't just being added as like a backup or whatever, you're adding her to be like a core starting player. And then the chemistry is kind of off because you just had this long break. People are away. They were already trying to build chemistry before. So I think it's just one of those situations where they're still trying to find their feet, and it's ultimately like a shorter season in the WNBA. You only have 40 games. So if you take time to have to build that, then there's not much time to recover. But I do think they are one of those teams with talent. Like we were saying about the Aces, they may struggle, but I do think in the playoffs, this team does have the potential to go far and does have the potential to still win games. It's just, what their matchups end up being, how the playoffs work out for them, who ends up having big moments. I mean, Gabby Williams is capable of having a big game whenever. Skylar Diggins-Smith is the same thing. NECA, all of those pieces that they have. So I do think, I remember like back in like 2021, like the two teams in the finals were like the 5th and 6th seed. It was like Chicago and Phoenix. I was like, why can't I remember that matchup? And they were two teams that were really good. Like Chicago that year, had Candace Parker, Courtney, all of these people, and just like had some struggles in the beginning, but then recovered and went into the playoffs as like a 5th or a 6th seed and ended up winning the whole thing, right? So like, I feel like it's almost the same situation as that, where this team may be a lower seed, but has the potential to beat out a lot of really good teams and then end up a little further in the playoffs than we might predict right now.
Yeah, I know to be, Jamie, when you were describing them, right? A team that built through free agency, a team that at times like hasn't really been able to figure out the fluidity to the operation that they're trying to run there. Plenty of talent, plenty of stars on this team. It sounds a lot like last year's Liberty. And that is something I haven't been able to shake. And obviously the Liberty made to the finals last year, so it's not like it was some type of disappointing season for them. But I do think one of the main common traits that I think that I feel between last year's Liberty and this year's Storm team is when you're trying to integrate this much talent onto your team. And you already had talent there with Jewel and Ezzy, and I mean Jordan Horson took the next step on the there's a lot of talent. And sometimes I think that teams with talent, and I think this happened with the Liberty at times last year, and I think it's happened this year with the Storm, figuring out how to prioritize talent at the right times. And I think that at times the Storm have struggled trying to figure out which star player they want to prioritize at once. And I think, frankly, I think that NECA should be prioritized so much more than she is right now. And I think that she could be such NECA feels like the foundational player here for me. When it's like, all right, if we're on offense, we're in the half court, we're gonna get the ball to NECA, and we're gonna figure it out from there to a point. Obviously run a sense and everything, and certainly you're gonna get Jewel shots. You're gonna find ways to get Skylar Diggins the ball, Skylar Diggins-Smith. Like you're gonna make that happen just because naturally playing with that much talent, it's bound to happen. But I feel like at times they've lacked like familiarity in like the way that they are trying to achieve wins. And at times that can certainly be a plus in winning in different ways. But I think it's been more of a negative this year for the Storm as opposed to a positive. We've seen them win games in different ways, but we've also seen them lose games at times where it feels like, I don't know if overcomplicated. They overcomplicate things. I don't know if that's the word that I'm looking for, but I just think at times it could be more simple in the sense of like let your talent that is, because NECA doesn't really get brought up in like the top players in the league conversations anymore, and the talent is still there. I don't quite understand that. She has some cases to make for some postseason stuff, and they just don't really like I guess prioritize her in that way at times, and especially in a league like the W where bigs are so fundamental in success of a team, like as opposed to guards that we've seen over the past 20 years or so. It's almost always a big leading the way. And I think if they just let NECA lead the way, and that's certainly people are still gonna eat. Don't get me wrong. You got Jewel Lloyd on the perimeter. Jewel's putting some shots up. That's Jewel Lloyd. But I do think at times they could find different ways to prioritize NECA, and I feel like if they've had that foundation, that it could kind of save them from some of these weird losses, like the loss to the Mystics, where if they have that foundation that they can rely on, they might be able to smooth some of these losses out. But I don't really feel like they have that foundation of like, all right, when stuff's getting iffy, this is where we're going. I don't feel like they have that right now.
Yeah, well, you think about the Atlanta Dream who brought in Tina Charles this year, who big free agent, but I think people were kind of sleeping on Tina Charles going into this year.
100%.
And then look at what she's doing for the Atlanta Dream. Look at just got first career triple-double. And it's that same thing that you were just talking about. In times that the Dream are struggling, they go to Tina Charles. She's such a great veteran presence on a team where your star is Ryan Howard. It's only her third year in the league. And so pairing her with someone like Tina Charles, who's a legend, top 2 scorer in the league history, is working for them. And I mean, there's still little things that, the Dream can improve on as well. It's not like they're perfect, but I feel like with that conversation, they could be doing with NECA what the Dream are doing with Tina Charles. And I mean, you have young players on the Storm you have good players, old, veterans, young players, young stars.
Not a good mix.
They have so many people on the Storm that could mix well with NECA. You have Ezzy. I don't get why. Oh, me too. I don't get why the Ezzy NECA thing hasn't been prioritized a bit more, just like you're saying. So I think there's something that they could probably take from how the Dream have used Tina Charles this year, which is honestly fantastic. I feel like she didn't play last year. And then, didn't know if she was going to play this year, but then the Dream picked her up, and it's just been such a great fit. It's been look at her stats, look at what she's accomplishing. And so I think in all of this conversation this season about the young people and the rookies and the next generation, you're right. I feel like we're sometimes forgetting that some of the best players we've ever seen in the world are still playing and still playing at an elite top level that could get them on an all WNBA team by the end of the season. So we're definitely, I think it's a weird thing that is happening with these.
And I'm not even gonna get into it today. I will one of these days. But as we talk about utilization of posts, talking about the way Tina Charles is used, you think back to, we talked last week a little bit about how Camila Cardoso should be used so much more, and that remains true. NECA, the way that she isn't being, talked about enough and probably not given enough opportunities. A lot of that does also come down to your passing into the post, and that is a lost start. It is a disaster.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on post entry passing.
We're gonna need to.
That's an episode in its own.
Entire episode. Yeah. No, for real. I about had several heart attacks this past March watching March Madness.
Oh my goodness.
As we all did.
Like I said, not gonna get into it right now, but then when you look at someone like Gabby Williams, who is a very solid passer, especially as a forward, she has the length, she has that versatility. She's already averaging a little over 2 assists per game. Last year, in the games that she played, she averaged nearly 4. And so that is certainly someone who would be in a good position to get the ball to NECA, to get kind of that back and forth going. And we haven't quite seen it going yet. Of her assists, the most that she's connected with one player is NECA with 3, and that's in only 4 games. So we're seeing a little bit of that coming, but that is definitely something that I would really like to see the Storm exploit a lot more, just to kind of bring that all together there. All right, I have a little treat for you.
Yeah.
You two and everyone listening at home as well. So I have everyone's favorite game that you stumble upon randomly on social media. I'm gonna give you a player A and a player B.
Okay.
And we're gonna talk about it a little bit. So our player A averages 38.6 minutes per game, 22.7 points per game, shoots a little over 37% from the floor, just under 35% from 3, 4.9 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists, 2.4 steals, 2.9 turnovers. All right. Player B, 37.1 minutes per game, 18.6 points, 44.7% from the field, 36% from 3, 3.6 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 2 steals, and 2.2 turnovers per game. So, player A, I'm going to narrow this down because this is.
I think I know who player A is.
I think I know who player B is.
See, I don't think.
Okay.
Actually, wait, no. The rebounds are too low.
So player A is a current player this season. Player B is a past MVP.
Ooh.
From an MVP season.
So wait, from an MVP season. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Ooh.
So this is a past season. I was trying to contextualize player A and their current season numbers, and player B popped up in my stat search on Her Hoop Stats, and I was blown away.
So the player B is an MVP in an MVP season with only 18.6. And
I'm not gonna lie. I'm blank. I don't know who player B is because that feels low for an MVP season, like across the board low. But maybe I'm hating.
It's a guard for sure. Like what it has to be a guard because who has 3.6 rebounds as a post player?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I know. Can I say who I think player A is?
Yeah.
Like, is that allowed?
By all means, please.
I think player A is Arike.
You got it.
Let's go. Come on now.
Arike is currently, this all started because I went down the rabbit hole that Arike is currently not only leading the league in minutes per game, she is tied for the most minutes per game in league history for a season.
Wow. I mean, frankly, I don't know. I don't have the usage rates in front of me, but I imagine with the injuries that the Wings have had this season, like, there probably hasn't been much other choice, frankly, for them to try and compete.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is I'm gonna break it down a little bit more after we get into player B.
Yeah,
I have a guess.
Things look good. Yes,
I think it's Diana Taurasi.
That
is a great guess. It is not Diana Taurasi.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I like player A's stats more. So I'm telling you that.
I'm just trying to think of a player who would have that much impact to be MVP, but only has 3.6 rebounds a game.
You know who I'm thinking? Based on having lower stats,
but still,
I feel like it's got to be someone who's on a stacked team, and I feel like it's got to be a guard.
Yeah, it has to be a guard.
And I can think of someone who recently got their jersey retired.
Oh.
Is it Maya Moore?
It's not Maya Moore.
Oh, damn.
We're going back pretty deep. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I
thought Maya would be way higher.
Yeah, Maya would be higher.
Yeah. I ain't put enough respect on Maya's name.
We are all very young. And so this is going back pretty far. If you have anything else you want to throw out there, cool.
I'm cool with the reveal.
Let's do the
guys, the grand reveal. This is, as I'm sitting here saying I had lithic eye teeth. There we go.
Video only perks.
Yeah. So this is Sheryl Swoop's 2005 MVP.
That was going to be my next guess.
Wow.
Literally
stacked team. Yeah. So I was on the right track. I just went too recent with it.
What I just couldn't believe is guards putting up just across the board the significance of the points per game being that high. Yes, it's not, 20 plus like we've seen in some situations, but also with really solid efficiency from the floor. Different because Sheryl didn't rely on the three quite as much as Arike.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what I really was focusing on was the steals. Because Arike is not getting nearly enough credit,
for
the way
she
does
that
every year.
We can
this
turn
year.
That up.
The steals for Arike are always like they waver, but they're like that.
Last year it was 1.6.
Okay.
She's averaging 50% more per game
and
this year.
Yeah.
In 38.6.
The shift that Latricia Trammell has been able to bring mentality-wise, I feel like, to Arike, and just like, I mean, she expends so much energy on the offensive side of the ball.
Yes.
That like I completely understand why there's some possessions taken off on the defensive side at times. But last season especially, and I've gotten to LT is an Oklahoma native, so she's been in Norman calling games. So I've gotten to chop it up with her and like been down to cover games in Dallas. And I remember at the beginning of last season, like just the emphasis on defense, and like we knew what that's LT's bread and butter is that side of the ball. And it felt like a cultural shift at times within the Dallas Wings franchise when Arike made the point that I'm going to be the tone setter on defense. And we've seen that at several times over the past 2 years since LT has gotten there. So I didn't know that she was like 2.4. That's more than solid.
The league.
More than like that is very, very good. So like I think when you think of, the offense is so explosive from Arike that it's easy to overlook the defense. But like I said, since LT's time being there, the steps up that Arike has taken on that side of the ball have been substantial, and the stats show for it.
Yeah, if she got to 5 rebounds per game on the season, she would be the only person ever to average 25, 5, and 2. It's absurd. And the biggest thing that I think gets pointed out with Arike is the efficiency or lack thereof offensively at times. And so what I really got curious about was, okay, she's been playing all these minutes. She's had this extremely high usage rate. How has this looked since Satu came back? Because that has been such a huge difference maker out of the break. Just they do not have a super deep guard core. Right. And so that's a big part of why she's having to play so many minutes. Although she does always play a lot of minutes. She just is like an energizer bunny.
It's just the responsibility aspect of it.
Exactly. So before the break, Arike was shooting 36.9% from 2. And she had a 28.4% usage rate. After the break, she is down to a 23.9% usage rate, which at that level, like 5%, that's very significant. Her percentage from 2 is 51.5%.
So you're making it seem like having Satu Sabally available is a good thing. That's what I'm picking up here.
You take focus away for the defense. You give her options. And she doesn't have to expend quite as much energy and doesn't have to force up as many bad shots. Like she isn't getting enough credit for what she's done since the break. She isn't getting enough credit for what she's done this year. I know that Dallas has struggled, but she's not the one who put together the roster, frankly. Like that just is what it is. And the injuries she's been put in a tough situation. And I was finding that and I'm like, man, that is an MVP season. And this is what Arike is doing. Like, we talk so much about new fans, trying to give some context, stuff like that. I figured that was some really, really fun context.
Yeah. I mean, it would be an MVP season if A'ja Wilson wasn't doing the absolute most nuts thing. It's hard to talk about an MVP season this year because...
But, you can still be in the conversation. I think everyone, it's relatively known who number 1 is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
But you got 5 votes. So
you got 5 votes.
You got 5 votes. So I'm cool with having the conversation.
Maybe she sneaks like a couple 4 or 5. Like, you're not going to win on a team that's at the bottom of the league. And again, a lot of these statistics are out of necessity because of just the way that Dallas is set up right now. She's having to shoulder a lot of the burden, but what she's doing, even despite that, especially defensively, when it would be so easy just to like roll over, die. Obviously they are struggling on defense, but I mean, she's trying, man. Like I commend her for the effort. I commend them for what they're doing and for coming out of the break really ready to like hit the ground running and make a push. Like you said last week, Chelsea, as your pick for kind of dark horse getting into the playoffs. And I you know what? I think that a lot of people probably see the vision now. Will it happen? Will it not? I'm not going to get into that.
It might have been too late by the time Satu got back. It might have been too late, but I do think a healthy like core that they have going on, like they're on the right track. I think there's a few things on the roster that maybe aren't adding up, but I do think they're on the right track in terms of like trying to keep Arike and Satu because the two of them are phenomenal. So you just have to have them healthy for long enough to really make an impact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we were sitting here saying, I don't know how long this episode
I was just about to
make sitting at 30 minutes. So we are going to wrap this up. Our priority for next week is hopefully we are going to come back with a name so that we can quit calling it the Unnamed Podcast. And we'll have a full week's worth of discussion to be had on the WNBA and whatever else pops up. Thanks so much for joining us again, guys. You can follow us on social media.
Also, before we hit, I'm going to try hit my Nerf hoop. Let's see if we get it. Oh, no. Okay.
Is that
You
gonna be a
never
thing?
know either
That's-
way, so you can lie.
I was staring at it the whole
I
time.
would've-
I was like, I want to see if that goes
I would have
in.
reacted like a bang. Like
One day I'll get it. I hit backboard, so
Okay, we're gonna keep tally.
we're gonna keep. Yeah, we're 0-1 right now.
Incredible.
your efficiency stats.
Yeah, let's
All
go.
right. See you next week, guys.